voters. Tonight, 2.89 crore of you can heave a sigh of relief for successfully having cleared the citizenship test in our country. Yes, I'm talking about the National Register of Citizens second draft list that came out. Experts say about 40 lakh names of those who had applied and those who reside in Assam are missing from this list. Now, if you read some of the comments that have been made on social media or watch some of the politicians on the news channels, you might get the impression that this entire issue is about Hindu-Muslim and is a political issue. But it's much more beyond that, which is why we are going to talk about it tonight. Making it communal, I believe, is simply narrowing the debate. Here is essentially what's really happening, viewers. NRC, as per instructions of Supreme Court, seeks to make a list of those eligible for India's citizenship and thereby find the illegal immigrants or foreigners in Assam. Now, the 1951 Register of Citizens or the electoral rolls of up to March 1971 are being considered as the base for this exercise. So effectively, anyone who isn't on these lists or cannot prove their link to ancestry or to ancestors who are on this list will be deemed to not be citizens of India. Now, the opposition is claiming this is a communal vote bank ploy. Well, it is as per the Supreme Court orders. And it has been going on since Congress's era. It's not as if BJP woke up one fine day after coming to power in 2014 and decided to do this. But anyways, let's leave aside the politics for a bit. These are the issues that we believe must be addressed. Future of 40 lakh citizens who are currently in our country is uncertain tonight. Their lives have been put at risk purely because successive governments claimed that refugees must be sent back but failed to take any action to deal with it. Maybe because it was also a very simple vote bank calculation for them and it suited them. Now in 2018, is it really possible, viewers? Is it really possible to deport lakhs of people back to Bangladesh or wherever it is that they came from? Including adults, remember, who were born here post 1971. Effectively, some of them will be over the age of 40 and more. So here are some of the questions that I am asking tonight. Question number 1. Is the process of vetting applications fair? There were about 3.89 crore applicants. Of those, 40 lakh are now missing. Is the entire process fair? Are those who are legitimately Indian really making the cut? What happens to those who don't pass this citizenship test? For example, right now as the draft list stands, that's 40 lakh people. What happens to them? Do they get deported overnight? And if they don't get deported, then what is the policy that the government is looking at to deal with them? And is it really right for those to question the intent behind this list? Because from the 1985 accord that was signed to successive governments, including many of those of the Congress party, to the Supreme Court then asking for this list, almost nobody has ever contended the intent. So why now? These are some of the questions we'll ask our panelists on the other side of this short report.
An attempt at bringing closure to the vexed foreigners issue in Assam, an issue over which thousands have lost their lives. The National Register of Citizens updated in Assam for the first time since 1951.
State government and central government have extended full cooperation in this regard to honor the direction of the Honorable Supreme Court of India.
Out of 3 crore odd applicants, 2 crore odd applicants have been found eligible for inclusion in final draft of NRC. Names of over 40 lakh people have been left out.
I would like to reassure every person whose name is not there in the draft NRC that they will get ample opportunity for filing a claim.
As concerns mounted over the fate of these 40 lakh people, the Home Minister of India stepped into allied concerns, saying that no coercive action will be taken against those excluded.
वह लिस्ट फाइनल एनआरसी नहीं है। इसके बाद क्लेम्स एंड ऑब्जेक्शंस का पूरा अवसर मिलेगा। क्लेम्स एंड ऑब्जेक्शंस का अवसर जो मिलेगा 28 अगस्त के बाद, जिन लोगों को भी लगता है कि हमारा नाम एनआरसी में होना चाहिए था, नहीं है, तो वो लोग अपना क्लेम्स एंड ऑब्जेक्शन फाइल कर सकते हैं।
But the opposition led by Mamata Banerjee was still unconvinced.
When there is a court case in Supreme Court, why Government of India didn't plead for these people to give protection?
Meanwhile, Congress President claimed credit for the initiative even as he slammed the government for its execution of the registration process.
This is a very crucial phase for Assam because there has been a vexed problem of illegal influx and foreigners issue in Assam, and there has been a lot of hesitation from various groups, including student organizations like All Assam Students Union. And today, the final draft of the NRC has been released, in which 40 lakh citizens have not found the names in the NRC. But before the announcement of the NRC, it has been declared that no action can be taken against those whose names have not surfaced in the NRC, not only in Assam but also in the neighboring states of the northeastern India. So definitely this is a very crucial phase. The final draft of the NRC has been declared today, but at the same time doors are still open for those whose names have not surfaced in the NRC, because they can file their objection and they can claim that as why their names have not surfaced in the NRC.
As the debate on the implementation of this critical list rages on, that will determine the fates of millions, Mirror Now asks, are concerns about the NRC list legitimate? The debate begins now.
It's a good evening to our guests, Sudhanshu Mittal, leader of BJP, Kailash Vastev, senior advocate with the Supreme Court, Pranav Jha, spokesperson for the Congress Party, Colin Gonzalez, founder of Human Rights Law Network, Deepak Diwan, senior journalist, and Alok Prasanna, senior resident fellow at the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. And I want to go across to Mr. Prasanna first. Mr. Prasanna, when the first list came out, there were quite a few issues. Many people who were legitimately would have otherwise passed the citizenship test didn't find their name on their records. The larger question that we want to understand, or the point that we want to understand, is the process fair? Are there any issues with the process for this citizenship test?
First thing you have to understand is citizenship is basically a legal fiction. And if it is a legal fiction, it has to be established in accordance with law. Now, if it has to be established in accordance with law, there has to be some sort of robustness in the procedure. And the manner in which 3.something odd crore people, 3.3 crore people have been asked to prove their citizenship in a limited time frame, I don't think we can exactly call the process fair. Now, there was some belief in a lot of people that maybe the Supreme Court is overseeing the process, maybe it will be fair. I am very sorry to say that the Supreme Court has been really more concerned with deadlines rather than fairness in the procedure. There was one issue about the Panchayat residency certificates. Rather than going in depth into the issue as to whether this will help people or not, the Supreme Court is like, no, this will get in the way of completing the deadlines. We'll issue we'll get to this issue later. Coincidentally, the number of people affected by that issue was 40 lakhs. So therefore, I mean, the problem is, I think we have seen a very flawed procedure. Now, keep in mind, it's not just about the people who are left out of the NRC. It is entirely possible that the names of the people in the NRC could also be challenged. Let us not forget that issue as well. So it is possible that tomorrow you may get 40 lakh challenges to the names of the people in the NRC. So are we sure that the process by which somebody's name has gotten in the NRC is also sufficiently fair and robust that tomorrow it will stand scrutiny in court? I'm not so sure, because at the moment there is nothing which tells us exactly what was the process. It has taken place in such secrecy. It has taken place in a manner which really does not inspire that kind of confidence. And unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say, the Supreme Court's overseeing it has not really inspired that much confidence either.
You say the process is shrouded in secrecy. But from my limited understanding, all that people need to do is either show a record of them being part of the 1971 electoral roll, or the citizenship register before that, or show their link to their father or grandfather who may be on these records. And are you saying that despite doing that, people are not making it to the list?
Yes. You will find that, I mean, even today, just scanning through social media, scanning through a lot of news reportage, you will find any number of instances where fathers and grandfathers have ended up on the NRC, but not their children. Now, that is absurd. People who have been born here, 2 citizens, would have naturally been citizens, but their claims have been rejected. Now, how is that possible? You have also seen a lot of instances where the documents have been rejected. On what basis? On what legal basis? And the fact of the matter is, not everyone is in an equal position to prove their claims. We all go by the belief that everybody is in the same position to prove their claims, but that may not necessarily be so. There are, of course, many hardworking, talented lawyers working pro bono for those who cannot represent themselves. But I'm sorry, we are talking about 3.3 crore people. Surely so many people have slipped through the net who could not represent themselves. Are we sure that everybody got the best possible representation to make out a legal case? And I repeat the legal point here again and again. It's not just a simple matter of saying, here, this is a fact. This is an undeniable fact. Like me sitting here in Bangalore is an undeniable fact. Nobody can say that. But me having to prove that I am a citizen is a legal process. Does everybody have that capacity to prove in a legal process that they are a citizen? I'm afraid not. So please, we have to understand the distinction that what we are asking people to go through is a legal process. Not everybody may have had access to the same.
Okay, let me just go across to Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal of the BJP and get his response to this before we go across to our other panelists. Mr. Mittal, I do have a list of certain examples from the last time that the list came out, which is about 6-8 months ago, where many people, including a retired Indian Army officer, were amongst those whose names had been left out of this list. And there were a series of issues that came out. Right now, Alok Prasanna is also pointing out to some of them. What's your response? How have you ensured that the system of really vetting these applicants is foolproof and fair?
First thing, let me give the broad contours of the entire debate. Is it anyone's case that there is no infiltration of Bangladeshi immigrants in Assam? No. Is it anybody's case that the demography of Assam has undergone a tremendous change because of this infiltration? No. Is it anybody's case that the Bangladeshis who have illegally entered India should remain as citizens there? No. So looking at all these things, there is a need to identify people who are not Indians and subsequently take whatever action is required to be done. Now, keeping these broad contours in mind, an exercise has taken place. You have mentioned the case of one individual who was serving in the army, but his name did not figure. Please understand that when you evaluate a system, you evaluate the system in its entirety and not in its exception. You have to see what is the norm, what is the rule, and not what is the exception. There may be mistakes which are getting committed, but are the mistakes such that they cannot be rectified? No. People who have been omitted by mistake, do they have an opportunity of representing and getting back into it? No. All avenues have been placed there. You've heard the statement of not only the Chief Minister, but everybody saying nobody is being put into detention camps, nobody is being deported. This is a list. Anybody who's agreed by the list is most welcome to come and lodge their objections. Now, you just heard saying there may be objections to the people whose name have been included. So be it. If wrongly people have become citizens who are not entitled to be citizens, if there are objections, so be it. Now, do you think for any sovereign nation, it is right that people enter illegally and obtain citizenship without the due process of law? No. Is it right for them to have ration cards? No. Is it right for them to become voters? No. Is it right for them to influence the polity of that state? No. These are the facts you are confronted with. And that is why,
so tell me,
on a
Mr.
proactive
Mittal,
basis, the Supreme Court has taken.
So tell me, Mr. Mittal,
yes,
it may not be right to give ration cards to illegal immigrants right away, but is it right to now throw out people 40 years after they came into this country illegally for the faults of successive governments at the state and the center for 40 years? Is it right for people and their children and successive generations to now pay the price and be deported and thrown out?
What is the price? Somebody who enters this country illegally knows the consequences. If there is enforcement of law, are you saying that law should not be enforced?
You fail to enforce the law for 40 years. Are you saying the 40 years somebody has lived in this country and survived in this country, been part of this country, and now because you want to fix the problem, your fault of for past 40 years, their children should be made to pay for it?
Miss, if a man has committed an offence 40 years back, if a man has murdered somebody 40 years back, your case is because for 40 years he was not detected, so he should not be punished. I mean, this is the most absurd argument, I would think so.
I think it's absolutely absurd for anybody to wake up today and say, and of course we know nobody is getting deported now or tomorrow or for the next several more years. So effectively since 1971, no, if you call my argument absurd, I have the right to respond to that. And I am going to respond to it if you call my argument absurd. So here is my response to that. I am going to respond to your argument first. I think it's absolutely absurd for somebody to wake up 50 years or 40 years later and start throwing out people for the failure of successive governments and agencies of that country. Go ahead and finish your argument.
Now, can I respond to this?
That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said, Mr. Mittal.
Can I respond to this?
That's exactly what I said. Go ahead and respond.
For 40 years, this is 71. You are saying that for 40 years, because the government did not discharge their responsibility, it should become incumbent on the people who have committed illegality to now enjoy the status of a citizen.
Yes, because you committed a bigger crime. Because the government, successive governments for their own benefits committed a bigger crime, and it is not the file of a 25-year-old who was born in this country and raised in this country for that very reason. Deepak Diwan. Let's go across to our other panelists then. Deepak Diwan, good evening to you. Yes, go ahead please. What's your view?
Good evening. See, I would like to say one thing, that it is just the draft outcome, the first final draft. We are discussing as 40 lakhs have been branded as foreigners. No, it's not. We have to wait for the final outcome, and then we should decide. And the thing is, you ask the people of Assam, they have so much anger and they have so much expectations because we have made them a fool. In 1985, we signed the Assam Accord and we agreed to review the 1951 NRC, which we failed to do. Again, 2005, again the Congress Chief Minister was there and Congress Prime Minister in Delhi, again Dr. Manmohan Singh, they signed a tripartite agreement agreeing to sort of look into NRC issue and review it again. But again they failed to do. That's how the matter went to the Supreme Court. It is the Supreme Court which ordered, and that's how the process started late. But the people of Assam are waiting for the outcome. They have welcomed this thing. Even the pro-talk alpha chief, Aurobindo Rajkhova, he has issued the statement and he has welcomed the draft outcome. See,
Mr. Diwan, do you expect the number to go up or go down as successive lists come out with further verification?
Well,
do you expect the number to go up or to go down?
See, the thing is, well, it will rather go down, because in the cases like where the father is there, son's name is missing, or somebody's wife's name is missing, somebody's mother's name is missing, this is just a matter of giving the papers again for renewal, review. And do not forget the NRC entire process. They started in 2015. And they had to scan 6.5 crore documents which were submitted by 68.27 lakh families of Assam. Can you imagine the mammoth paperwork done? It's all physically done. There was no computer to verify the papers. It's done manually. So this is the exercise which is being done. I tell you, tomorrow, let the final outcome come, the neighboring states would also demand the same thing to be done in their states. Whether it's Nagaland or Arunachal or Meghalaya or Tripura, they would also demand the revision of their NRCs. You don't know the problem the people have faced. Have you forgotten the Assam agitation? The entire state stood with the student leaders against
the fact is the Assam agitation happened in the 80s. Governments successively have still failed to address those issues. The issues are largely economical and social. And apart from making a list, what is it that the governments have done to solve those issues? What have we done to stop the porous border?
See, if some political party all through years, well, now the process has started. You should welcome it. If they did not do it, ask the previous government, ask the Congress party.
Let's ask the Congress party that. Pranav Jha, who's going to pay for the mistakes of the Congress party in the state and at the center? Because you failed to stop the illegal immigration, because you failed to send them back on time, because you failed from protecting our borders and stopping the illegal immigration via those porous borders. Are 40 lakh people expected to pay the price today?
The Congress government also came out.
Yes, Mr. Yes, Mr. Dewan. Let me ask that question to the Congress representative.
In 1983, which
I heard your question.
Supreme Court scrapped it
Please ask the
later
honourable
because they called it anti-national.
Yes, Deepak Dewan, if you could just hold on for a minute, we can hear Pranav Jha's response. Go ahead, please.
Professor Dewan, thank you. Tanvi, I heard your question and I thought that you started the program with the presumption that the 40 lakh people are not illegal immigrants. I expected the BJP spokesperson to say so. If you look at the argument, if you heard the speech of Honorable Home Minister, you say he himself says that it's not the final draft. It's only a draft list. It's not a final list. Therefore, establishing that they have not done the work properly, it's not a final work. And when Congress party speaks, it does not speak for any particular minority. It speaks for Annabella Ray. It speaks for Rebati Das. It speaks for Amiruddin, Maulana Amiruddin, who was the first deputy speaker of the Assam Assembly, and his family has been differentiated against. So it's a very serious matter, and you see it has taken a long time to work on the list. But what has come out, it's not a problem specific to only Assam. It's not an interstate issue. It's in fact an international issue. It affects Bangladesh, it affects Nepal, because there are Koch, Rajvanshis, there are Nepalis, there are Bangla-speaking people from Bangladesh, and there are tea garden workers, people from Jharkhand, my own state, and from Orissa, who for generations are working there in Assam. They have been differentiated. And what is most shocking is that there were 16 documents that one needed to have in order to qualify in the register, and millions of them have more than one document, yet they have been differentiated against. And if you, I was looking at the argument that you were having with Honorable Sudhanshu Mittal ji, and you were constantly asking that for 40 years, if a family has lived in a place, and he was justifying that the government is right, whereas the government is saying it is not right. So what we are trying clearly to do is basically building a case saying that everybody who's come from Bangladesh is a minority, and they are trying to again.
But they are following the framework that you set up. But they are following the framework that you set up. May I remind you that Indira Gandhi, in her days as the leader of this country, said that refugees, irrespective of their religion and where they came from, will be sent back. May I remind you that the 1985 Accord, which is basis for this entire exercise, was signed under Rajiv Gandhi's leadership. May I remind you that the 2005 tripartite talk and the resolution that was adopted was under Manmohan Singh. So I fail to understand what is your problem with the framework that is being followed now.
Because I will tell you, the intention of the government is not bona fide. The intention of the government is not bona fide because, you see, if you look at the Citizens Amendment Bill...
Mr. Dewan, I will come back to you in just 30 seconds. Mr. Dewan, I will come back to you in 30 seconds. Let Pranav Jha just respond to me.
Bill 2016.
You are saying despite the fact that you put a framework there, it's the bona fide intention of the government.
That the intention of the government is not bona fide. Revati, Tanvi, we can't, at the same time we can't hear. When I'm speaking, when you speak, then I can't hear. The argument that I was making, it's very clear that the intention of the government is not bona fide. Clearly evinced by the spokesperson here present, he is saying, I am giving you a contention in support of my argument that the government has introduced a Citizens Amendment Bill 2016, and that bill proposes to differentiate between citizens, those people, similar people who are living on this land for 4 generations. And it's another matter that it will fall flat before the law. It is gone to select committee. It will not be tenable. It will not be accepted.
I will come to that in just a bit, Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha, the bill, the Citizen Amendment Bill, which is obviously not the government's priority this Parliament session, we'll come to that in just a bit. I really don't want our viewers to get confused by connecting the two right now. Of course it is, and you are do that separately. Tonight we're talking about this list, and I have 2 more panelists who haven't spoken yet, so quickly going across to Mr. Kailash Vasudev for his view. Mr. Vasudev, you've heard the panelists so far. What's your view?
See, the issue of immigrants in the country has been agitated since the Constitution of 1950. In 1950, when the Constitution was framed, Articles 4 and 5 said, people who have come into the country after July of 1948 are entitled to repatriate. We then travel into the 1971 conflict in which Bangladesh was created. After Bangladesh was created, at that point of time, a large number of people were permitted to come and stay in India for the purposes of the livelihood for a limited purpose. The government then said that all these persons will be repatriated to their respective, to their own country, because a new country had been created. At that point of time, 2 things happened. People stayed here. Many people came into India from Bangladesh across the borders or whatever. This led to a situation where the local people of Assam and the Northeast started losing their identity. They began to agitate for their rights, leading to the first Assam Accord of 1985, which was authored by the then Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, who in his wisdom said, yes, you're right, these people should go back. In the Assam Accord, specific provisions were made, including the creation of a fence across the border. Assam border is about 450 odd kilometers with 67 riverine points. The other part of the country also said that no, we want a similar situation, whether it is Tripura, whether it is Meghalaya, whether it is Bengal. They all said that no, we must get the BSF to man it. The intent of the whole thing was people who belong to their own country should go back. Our own identity should be maintained. Led to a lot of creation of legislation. You had the Foreigners Tribunal, you had the Assam Immigration Removal Act, you had all sorts of situations which came. But it has come to a head where the local people of Assam, the local people of our country began to feel that they were being pushed into corners, not getting livelihood and losing their identity. The Supreme Court was invoked. I think the gentleman's name is Mr. Prasanna, who spoke first, who said Supreme Court has been unjust. It's an absurd statement. Supreme Court is never unjust. Supreme Court takes a decision and it is the law of the land. Please do not call the Supreme Court unjust. It is improper and incorrect. Coming back. Now you have a situation where the Supreme Court, after hearing parties, after listening to all contentions, has proceeded to a very detailed judgment in 2014, laying down the circumstances, conditions, as also the procedures to be followed by tribunals. If the Supreme Court has laid down a procedure, it has laid down the procedure in accordance with law, which is being followed. What is happening is there are aberrations, there are bound to be, that some people who have been living in the country since 100 years or 200 years or whatever, are now being excluded. There are remedies available to them. But are you going to turn around and say that anybody who comes into this country illegally is going to be permitted to stay? Look what's happening in Europe. So many people are coming in illegally. Are they permitted to enter the countries? They're kept cordoned off in a different area. They're permitted to stay in certain limited areas. Because every country wants to maintain its ethos. Every country wants to protect its citizens. We have the Constitution, we have a Citizenships Act, we have an immigrant's positions, we have all sorts of situations which are there in the law to protect citizens and also to give citizenship to those who seek to claim it. Are you going to permit illegal persons to come and settle in this country at the cost of your own systems? When the country was created by war, It's the country which has been given independence. Please let the people of that
but
country
the
go back and
examples that
say
you
that
quote,
is what everybody has been demanding.
yes, forgive me for intervening.
Just one second. Yes.
The examples that you quote, Mr. Vasudev, European or American, in all of those, yes, in most of those examples, these people have been kept in several separate detention, yes, facilities or separate camps. They've not been included as part, correct, of the country and the society.
We have not done it here.
We have. These, correct, people are now literally correct, part of our ecosystem in this way or that. They may not have voting rights so far. Some of them may have achieved, but they're not in a separate place. They've lived there, their families have flourished there for 40 years now.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. They have come, they have obtained permissions, they have obtained permits, they have obtained everything over here. But is that legally obtained? Have they obtained citizenship before obtaining these kind of permits, whether it's a voter's card or a ration card? It's only citizens who are entitled to this, not everybody. You do not give it to even an NRI has to come here and prove his bona fides before he gets his identities. It's not that you give it all on Sunday. It is the terrible system which we have, where corruption has come in, where political considerations come in, that we abandon the fundamentals of our constitution. This is where we have gone wrong. Today, if the Supreme Court has asked that this be implemented, it is doing nothing wrong, because that is what the demand of the people is since 85. The Assam Accord, the earlier legislation in Assam, the consideration of the situations there, and what is happening in the Northeast today is, it is compelling people to say, look, for example, let's go into the disturbed area belt of Nagaland, Assam.
Right.
The disturbed area belt of Nagaland and Assam is not so much a dispute between Nagaland and Assam, but because of the elements who are non-Assamese and non-Nagalas who have come and settled in that area. There are suits pending on that issue.
No, there is no denying the fact, the impact that it is having on the state, on the people there. There is no denying the fact that the demographics and thereby the socio-economic impact is changing. Therefore, no country should have such porous borders and should be welcoming illegal immigrants in the way we have. But who's at fault for that, and who's really paying for that? That's the big question. I'm just going to take that question across.
Therefore, the answer is. No, just 1 second before you go there. The answer is simple. If the government is faulted, the government is rectifying. Can you stop the government? There have been faults in government. We've always had faults. Today, the government wants to rectify it, and it is rectifying it under the control of the Supreme Court. Is it doing something illegal?
Let me take that question across.
Just now, Mr. Prasanna said, Supreme Court has done this and the other.
Yes.
If the government is doing it, the Supreme Court orders are there, Supreme Court is supervising it. Is it doing anything wrong? Is it doing something illegal?
Is it something wrong, and is it unjust? Colin Gonsalves.
Let's have some.
Let me take that question across to Colin Gonsalves. Is it unjust and is it wrong if the government is rectifying its own mistake several years, maybe decades later?
Well, let me tell you, there's another side to this whole story, and then I'll come and answer your question directly. Let us suppose that this determination of 4 million people as being non-Indians is correct. Because even when they go before the tribunal, it is quite possible that there will be a marginal change in that figure, if any. We're only postponing the real crisis that is upon us. So let us suppose it is correct that 4 million people are not Indians, right? Now, India says they're not Indians. I'm sure Bangladesh will say they are not Bangladeshis. And I'm sure Bangladesh will not open its borders and say to millions of people, please come and settle on our lands and so on, and come, because you are our Bangladeshis, brothers and sisters. It's not going to happen. So therefore, what is their status in international law? Their status is that of stateless people, let us say. No state accepts them as citizens. Now, statelessness is covered by a very intricate body and a very well-developed body of international law. What can India do with a stateless person? People say, let's deport them. You cannot deport them. You cannot deport them because that is forcible deportation of a stateless person. Can you put them in camps? Can you put them in jails? You cannot do that. There's a way of treating stateless people. They are fully governed by human rights law, fully governed. And these human rights instruments and their laws are incorporated in constitutional law in India under Article 21, the right to life, which covers not only Indians but also foreigners. So now what situation do you have after this foolish exercise? You have determined that there are 4 million stateless people. These 4 million stateless people, you don't know what to do. You are not permitted in international law to take them at gunpoint and put them in jail or take them at gunpoint and push them across the border. And Bangladesh will refuse entry of these people. So basically you have a people who are governed ultimately in international law, even if they are declared to be stateless, they are governed in international law by all human rights protection. They have to be treated properly, their children have to be educated, they have the right to food, they have the right to work, they have the right to all these rights. So keep them as stateless people. Where will you keep them? You'll keep them in India, obviously. You can't deport them. I like the way people are talking. I say, well, let's get rid of them. Let's push them out. You can't do that. You can't do that at all. So ultimately, when you look at it, whether the Congress is right or the BJP is right in their slanging match as to who was wrong in letting them in, even assuming they came in illegally and they've settled now for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, practically in international law, you can't do anything. And I doubt if the Supreme Court of India will allow, when they actually deal with this issue, well, they will allow you at gunpoint to push people across the border. It's a crisis of enormous proportions. And it is akin to ethnic cleansing. The biggest crime against humanity in law today is ethnic cleansing. If you forcibly push people across the border,
right,
India will be accused of ethnic cleansing of 4 million Muslims. That's a very serious crime for people for India to
okay, some serious
undergo.
Questions that you've
raised and
highlighted.
When Aung San Suu Kyi knocked off the Rohingyas, she was accused of ethnic cleansing.
She was.
So ultimately, you've got yourself into a fix. You've got yourself into a big mix-up, and you don't know what to do. And just communal talk, inciting people's, communal fervor. How does that help India? I think this is the most anti-national activity ever undertaken.
All right, Mr. Gonzalez,
10, 20,
with
30
very, very
years,
strong
maybe
views.
Maybe illegally.
Let me go
this
across
is
to
an
two of our
anti-national
panelists.
move
Mr.
to
Gonzalez.
make the National Register for Citizens.
Yes, point taken. And before I get this, so Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal to respond to you about what are you going to do next after this, the final list is out. Deepak Dhawan, you wanted to come in between, and I know you have to leave. So your final remarks from you, and then I'll go across to Sudhanshu Mittal.
I would just like to mention to all the panelists, those who are sitting there, to keep in mind that cutoff date for Assam of this, when we are looking at the citizens, is March 24th, 1971, midnight. And for rest of the country, it is July 19, 1948. You understand?
Yes.
What Assam has been through is going through. We are looking at cut off 1971.
1990s, what are you
But that's
going to
already
do?
been decided, Mr. Devan. The question is, what will you do?
You're not answering the
40,
question.
45, 50 lakh, 35 lakh, whoever it is, whatever is the final number of this list, what will you do? Can you send them back to Bangladesh?
But can you put them only in Assam? You want Assam to bear the burden?
Just one
alone?
second, I want to come on this one.
Okay. Point taken. Thank you, Mr. Devan,
send them.
I just want to come in. I just want to come in here for a minute.
Send them to Didi's state. Send them to West Bengal.
Well, actually, that may be the next test for Mamata Banerjee for all the tall claims she made today, whether she will actually accept them in her Bengal, and then what that does to the demographics of the state. Okay, if Sudhanshu Mittal is all right with it, Kailash Vasudev wants to come in for a minute, and then Sudhanshu Mittal can make his point. Thank you, Mr. Devan,
I just want to come in for a minute.
Yes, Kailash Vasudev.
I wanted to come in to say this. At this point of time, it is a process of identification. You are trying to identify people who are illegally here. There is no question or no decision taken as to what is to be done with them. Mr. Gonzalez is saying this is a very foolish exercise. It's an exercise which is taken in the national interest. The foolish exercise is supported by the Supreme Court. How is it stupid and how is it foolish, I don't know. You are trying to say that an exercise taken by the government, which has been given approval by the Supreme Court, which has prescribed the procedure, is foolish. Mr. Gonzalez, I'm surprised. Now, you identify the people. The next step, the government will decide what is to be done. At this point of time, it is to see what can be done and what will happen. International law, all sorts of situations will come. They are bound to arise because you're dealing with a large population of people who are here illegally. You have had crisis. You've had the crisis in Palestine. You've had the crisis all over the world. I can give you thousands of examples. But here is a situation where an exercise has started with judicial intervention Please do not say it is foolish.
No, so I think largely what he meant was because it comes down to the point, what will you do with them? The MHA today has said, and the Home Minister has said that we are not deporting them immediately, but I think that's also largely because this isn't the final list. So they can't really deport these 40 lakh people.
That's
but
right.
Mr. Gonsalves, before I come to you, to Sudhanshu Mittal, what are you going to do with the final list of people? Are you actually going to send them back to Bangladesh? Can you do that?
First, let me just comment on the observation of Mr. Gonsalves that this is the biggest anti-national activity. Mr. Gonsalves, identification of a foreigner is an anti-national activity. Well, you are redefining the meaning of anti-nationalism. To me, your statement is anti-national. If you are saying that the identification of a foreigner is an anti-national activity, it is an anti-national statement. You are letting down your own country. Your country gives a distinction between a foreigner and a
Mr. Mittal, let's get back to the point. That's his view. He said it. The point, the larger question that really everybody wants to hear.
If you are going to allow me to speak, then fine. Otherwise, you are entitled to.
Are you ever going to answer my question or only say what you want to say? Are you ever going to answer my question or only say what you want to say? My question to you is, what are you going to do with those people who don't make it to the list?
He doesn't have an answer clearly, Tanvi.
And if that is your intention, you have a man calling this nation an anti-national nation.
Please don't get angry, Sudhanshuji. You don't have a substance.
You're not calling the nation anti-national nation. Don't think too much of yourself.
Anti-national for this exercise.
Mr.
And you
Mittal,
do not
calm
want
down.
anybody to respond to it.
Mr. Mittal, calm down.
Amazing. Please
Mr.
go ahead and do
Mittal, calm
whatever
down.
you want to.
Calm down. If you want to take all your time responding to that comment, feel free to do so. If you want to participate in a slightly more in-depth debate, then you can also tell us what is the government's policy and plan once you find out 35, 40, 45 lakh, how many ever people are there who are illegal immigrants and not India's citizens. Can you actually send them back to Bangladesh?
I am only going to answer if you're going to let me, and you're not button. If you assure me that, then I'm going to speak. Otherwise, you're welcome to your conversation.
Sudhanshuji, please do it quickly. We all have to speak.
I don't need these lessons from you. There is an anchor who knows how to regulate the debate. So please keep off it.
Are you going to give me an answer? Because literally time is getting wasted and I'm running out of time. Go ahead and finish your point, Sudhanshu Mittal.
I don't
Tanvi,
think so.
I think you need to move on.
I don't think you're interested in listening. You are not assuring me that you will not interrupt me. So please
I don't want your rhetorics on who's an anti-national and who's not. Let's move beyond that to the actual concrete conversation right now, please.
Tanvi, please move on.
No, this is not rhetorics.
It is. Lives of 40 lakh people is at stake right now. Their futures are uncertain. Can you shed some light on government's policy towards that?
He doesn't have an answer, clearly.
Colin Gonsalves, please.
No, we have enough answers. First thing, you will defranchise them.
Tanvi, I want to
this is very strange.
Element of this country. A man who is fraudulently participating in your democracy, when he gets identified as a foreigner and when he gets defranchised, I think it's a critical element of this country. If I have to say, if democracy has to be saved, you cannot let democracy be hijacked by people
in exactly
who are not
1 minute. I'll
country.
finish.
And if that is anti-national for you, so be it. If franchising these people is anti-national for you,
generally, when you don't have an answer to a question.
All right, disenfranchise them is what he is saying. Colin Gonsalves, and then the last word to Pranav Jha. Colin Gonsalves, please.
Interrupting while you were speaking, I did not speak a word. You are the most indecent man I've ever come across. And
Sudhanshu Mittal, I don't want any personal comments, please. Keep your personal comments to yourself. Colin Gonsalves, please.
Even before.
What personal comment? He was interrupting and you were a silent spectator.
Because even before we did the survey,
of all anchors I've ever come across.
Even before we did the survey, we knew that there were millions of people in this country where there were allegations made that they were not Indians, even before we did the survey. Therefore, all administrators, all politicians knew there were 1, 2, 3 million people where there is some controversy about their Indian citizenship. Let's say 1 million or 2 million or whatever. Therefore, even before you do the survey, you would think that if I have 1 million people that I ultimately decide are not Indians, or 2 million people, what will I do with them? Because I can't push them at gunpoint across the border. So this had to be decided right at the beginning. Before deciding on a survey which will give you the exact figure, you already knew that there are millions. What do we do with millions of people? So it's so strange that you decide to go ahead with this whole exercise. You cause, all kinds of tension to come up. People are fighting against each other, willing to kill each other. And the basic question was, you cannot do anything to them. They will stay exactly where they are. Because law does not allow you, neither international law nor constitutional law will allow you to take and push them anywhere.
Point taken, Mr. Gonsalves. Last 30 seconds to Pranav Jha. Pranav Jha, if nothing can be done about this, then why was this initiated in the first place? Does it not show that political parties just use this issue for their own political mileage? Yes, Pranav Jha.
Yes. Two small points, Tanvi. The relevant question that you were asking, the most relevant question you were asking the Honorable BJP spokesperson, and his anger was giving you the answer that is the purpose of the debate is to vitiate the atmosphere. They clearly don't have a roadmap. They don't know what to do with these 40 lakh people. Therefore, I'm saying that the second point follows from that please remember in national interest that they're already being labeled as, as like all of them are Muslims, minorities, and they've all illegally traveled to India, immigrated to India. It is not so. Please look at it. Please, let's not make it a nationalistic debate where 40 lakh people suffer and they are ostracized and their right to franchise is taken away illegally. If we should look at it, if they are foreigners, if they are illegal immigrants, they should be dealt like that.
Well, so,
but it
to your point, this is not the final list. To your point, this is not the final list. One can only hope by the time the final list actually comes out, the government has done away with all of the other hurdles and ensured that only the legitimate people who are actually citizens of India get that. My apologies to Kailash Vasudev, but I'm out of time, so I will have to thank my panelists over here. Viewers, very quickly as we wrap up this debate, here are some facts and not fiction for you as we summarize this debate for you. Assam's immigration issues are indeed a challenge. That is fact. That is not a fiction. It's not just a communal ploy. It is the reality. It is not just one party's communal conspiracy at all, as we've shown to you in this debate, that this actually started several decades ago. 1985, the accord was signed. 2005, the resolution was adopted. It's happening under the instructions of the Supreme Court. Nobody is getting deported immediately because this isn't the final list. So it's not to say 40 lakh people will have to be sent to Bangladesh tomorrow. This isn't the final list. The list is still being fine-tuned. People who've not made it to this list are legitimately Indian citizens who will get their chance. Over 60 years ago, viewers, remarking on the complexity of drafting citizenship laws, B.R. Ambedkar said, except one other article in the draft constitution, I don't think that any other article has given the drafting committee such a headache as this particular article. I do not know how many drafts were prepared and how many were destroyed as being inadequate to cover all the cases which were thought to be necessary and desirable to cover. And I think that challenge that Ambedkar found then while drafting the constitution exists even now when it comes to citizenship. On the other hand, and this may be an unpopular view, but I believe we are bigger than Trump's America and we are bigger than most nations in Europe. It's not in our culture to close our doors. Sure, illegal immigrants isn't the right way to go about it, but for many, their children live here. They were born here, they were raised here, they live here, they're part of our society. They ran away, their parents ran away from a worse situation. They ran away from either economic pain or social pain, and they came to our country hoping for a better future. And if they are criminals, then so are the governments, so are the politicians who've successfully turned away from the problem of illegal immigration all this while. Should these 40 lakh people be made to pay the price for that? I leave it up to you. I don't think so. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.